The night air on Portland's West Hills tasted of cedar and fear as Anna Miller tore through the underbrush, silk evening gown shredding around her calves. Above, November's moon glared like an interrogation lamp, exposing every trembling breath that ghosted from her lips. Branches slapped her cheeks, painting welts she barely felt over the pounding in her chest. Somewhere behind, John's baritone drifted through the trees, calm, coaxing, lethal. "Anna, darling, come back." A decade of polite galas, whispered endearments, and perfect couple photographs fractured under that single sentence. She stumbled on a root slick with moss, crashed to her knees, and the world spun in dizzy rings of silver and black. "Get up," whispered survival. She lurched forward, palms bleeding, and ran again. The soil grew loamy, then dropped away. She tumbled down a ravine, landing hard against a bed of ferns that hissed like snakes. For a heartbeat she lay stunned, mind replaying the moment in their mansion foyer when her husband's smile slipped and she understood she would never be allowed to leave alive. A crunch of forest litter snapped her back. She scrambled to her feet, but a shadow surged, pain bloomed behind her skull, stars burst, and gravity vanished. The scent of crushed pine, the weight of cold earth on her limbs, John's steady breathing as he dug, these became her fading soundtrack. When darkness finally blotted out the moon, it felt almost merciful. 10 years later, the same moon hung outside a cliffside palace that looked less like a home and more like a monument to its owner's ego, paneled in glass, anchored by concrete, lit so brightly it threw greenish reflections onto the Willamette River below. Inside, John Miller cradled a crystal tumbler of 18-year Dalmore like a priest holding sacrament. Though only 46, he wore influence the way older men wore arthritis. Visibly, proudly. A constant reminder of victories earned through charm and quiet menace. Market analysts praised his sustainable skyscrapers. Glossy magazines crowned him Portland's favorite son. And charity boards worshipped every check he signed. Yet each night at precisely 8:03 p.m., the hour Anna vanished. He dismissed staff, dimmed the chandeliers to a single amber pulse, and poured this ritual drink. The mansion's silence felt thick as wet concrete as he lifted the glass toward the city's twinkling skyline. To outsiders it seemed a toast to continued success. Only John knew it was an unspoken challenge to the ghosts prowling his memory. He sipped, let the smoky heat slide down his throat, and pictured the unmarked earth between a mossy oak's roots where, by his calculation, nothing remained but bone dust and regret. Guilt, he had learned, was not a chain but a compass. It pointed always to the place one could never return. He set the glass beside a single photograph of Anna in a silver gown. The frame's surface was polished daily, yet a faint smear hovered where his thumb often rested, as though grief could corrode glass the way time corrodes stone. Long before whispers of murder, their love story had glimmered like a fairy tale stitched in emerald thread. At the Portland Arts Gala a decade earlier, under chandeliers shaped like blown glass teardrops, John in a midnight tuxedo had spun Anna across the parquet floor while violinists poured Vivaldi into the air. Cameras stuttered flashes, socialites murmured envy. Anna's dress caught every spark of light, turning her into a living gemstone, and John glowed in her orbit, attentive to the smallest tilt of her head. Even Detective Tom Brown, then moonlighting as security, had paused to admire them. Yet behind the orchestral swell, John's phone, silenced in his pocket, vibrated nonstop with names saved under aliases, room numbers, and half-clothed selfies stamped with lipstick-smeared promises. He wore cheating like bespoke cufflinks, an accessory he could flash or hide at will. Anna, raised on novels where love conquered every flaw, defended him against gossip until a hotel keycard slipped from his wallet while she fetched breath mints after their final waltz. Doubt slithered in, whispering curiosities she could no longer ignore. Within weeks her hired investigators delivered a manila folder thick enough to require 2 hands. Even unopened, it bled betrayal. She finally flipped through airline receipts for clandestine trips, jewelry invoices addressed to strangers, photos of John leaning into kisses as if pledging eternity. A cold wind blew through her chest, extinguishing every warm memory. On a drizzly Thursday draped in autumn colors, Anna confronted him in their penthouse library. Rain puckered against floor-to-ceiling windows, turning city lights into wobbly stars. She held the folder like a condemned woman clutching last rites. "I'm leaving you, John," she said. And though her voice shook, her gaze was iron. "The divorce papers are filed." He lounged in a leather wingback, fingers steepled, studying her as though calculating market fluctuations. For an unbearable stretch he said nothing. Then his lips curved into a slow smile, the kind that reassures shareholders even when the numbers scream. "No," he replied, rising with predatory grace. "You haven't." He plucked the folder, tossed it into the fireplace, and watched flames tongue the evidence into ash. Anna's instinct screamed run, but habit chained her feet. Only when he murmured, "You'll always be mine, darling," did she finally feel the bars of a gilded cage she had mistaken for home. That night, with courage fueled by equal parts terror and resolve, she packed documents, a passport, and the rose-gold locket her parents gave on her 18th birthday. She slipped her wedding ring into an envelope addressed to her mother, proof of freedom soon to be mailed. Suitcases rattled softly down the grand stairwell as midnight settled like dust. Near the door, John appeared, blocking exit with a detached politeness more menacing than any shout. "It's raining," he offered, opening the umbrella stand as if service were affection. Anna stepped past him. The world outside smelled of wet asphalt and endings. The umbrella never reached her. She felt the first blow, a dull bloom at the base of her skull, before she heard it. Vision splintered, the marble foyer stretched sideways. Weightless, she toppled against the oak door, fingers scrabbling for support that wasn't there. John's silhouette loomed, one arm raised, wedding band glinting in the hallway's muted light. A second strike erased her scream. Sound shrank to the heartbeat thrumming in her ears as he carried her through back corridors toward the estate's private woodland slope. Half-conscious, she registered patches of starshot sky between branches, smelled damp earth, tasted pennies on her tongue. Somewhere inside the fog of pain, disbelief pulsed. This couldn't be John, the man who read Neruda aloud in bed, the philanthropist applauded by schoolchildren he'd never met. Yet here he was, digging. The shovel's metallic clink against stones marked her countdown. She opened her mouth to plead, but words emerged as gurgles. He laid her in the hastily hollowed ground, smoothed her hair like a bedtime gesture, then covered her with dirt that muted everything except the drum of her slowing pulse. In those final moments of light, Anna's thoughts snapped to Kate Wilson, her childhood friend saved from a predator years ago, and a single wish formed: "May someone remember I existed." The soil pressed, heavy as truth, until even that wish went silent. Sunrise unfolded innocent pink across Portland's skyline, unaware of nocturnal horrors. In the ensuite bathroom, John scoured beneath manicured nails until his cuticles bled pale crescents into the porcelain sink. He practiced grief in the mirror. Chin tremble, eye gloss, breath hitch. Then called police, voice threaded with panic so convincing the dispatcher teared up. Patrol cars arrived within minutes. Camera crews within hours. John paced the lawn clutching Anna's scarf, inhaling lilac perfume the same way an actor inhales memories to summon tears. Bloodhounds barked at every rabbit warren. Divers sliced the river like scalpel blades, and neighbors recited sympathetic platitudes into microphones. Detectives noted John's cooperation, his generous refreshments, his open financial records. Only Tom Brown, called in by chance, watched the billionaire's eyes when questions touched the estate's woodland lot. Brown saw a shutter slam behind those pupils, as if light were too dangerous to let in. But law demanded evidence, and evidence hid beneath damp Oregon soil, wrapped in silk now indistinguishable from mud. Without a body, prosecutors could only shrug. The world moved on, and flowers left at the Miller Gate wilted faster than public outrage. Seasons spun like roulette wheels. Buildings bearing the Millerstone Crest logo sprouted downtown, green roofs sprigged with native grasses curving like living crowns. Every opening ceremony showcased John flanked by civic leaders, smiling broad enough to shadow doubts. He pledged carbon-neutral construction, funded youth shelters, and adopted a rescue dog named Jasper for the cameras. In interviews he confessed sleepless nights haunted by questions, leveraging tragedy into empathy. Investors, charmed by vulnerability, poured millions into his projects. Meanwhile, Detective Brown shuffled to vice, then narcotics, But Anna's missing persons photo remained tacked above his desk at home, its edges curling like petals on a dried rose. On nights when bourbon loosened memory's leash, he'd trace timelines with red thread, whispering apologies to a paper face. Yet leads dissolved. Even rumors grew timid. Eventually the cold case files sank into the precinct archives, dust thick enough to muffle guilt. By the dawn of the 10th anniversary, John's empire eclipsed everything except his own legend. He relocated to a new glass-walled citadel cantilevered over forested cliffs, a place so modern it obeyed voice commands like a loyal pet. Yet the sleek corridors felt cavernous at night, and silence pooled in corners where laughter should have lived. Each evening at 8:03 he performed the whiskey rite: pour, toast, sip. The liquid scorched, but not enough to burn memories. Some nights he imagined hearing earth shift over forgotten bones. Other times he fantasized that nothing had happened at all, that Anna might saunter through the door smelling of rain and forgiveness. Guilt, he'd discovered, was the most faithful companion, always arriving, never announcing, content to sit beside him until dawn painted the river gold. On a rain-polished Thursday that smelled of fir needles and electricity, the doorbell chimed precisely as John swirled the night's first pour. Security monitors flickered static, a glitch he chalked to the storm. Curious, he padded across heated walnut floors, opened the hulking cedar door, and froze. Standing on the threshold was a woman with wind-tangled auburn hair, freckles dusted like constellations across pale cheeks, and eyes so familiar they rewrote his pulse. "Hi, John," she said, voice soft but steady, as droplets slid from her trench coat. "Long time." The tumbler slipped from his hand, shattering on basalt tiles, whiskey pooling like liquid amber around bare feet. His lips shaped a name he'd buried deeper than any body. She stepped inside uninvited, shrugging off the coat to reveal a simple cashmere dress. Silver, the color of memory. Had death changed fashion sense? The notion strangled logic. He closed the door on wind that howled like wolves denied a kill. Backlit by ambient sconces, she navigated the mansion as though guided by architectural blueprints etched into muscle memory. In the kitchen she located the exact cabinet holding his favorite crystal, selected a fresh glass, and poured a measure of the same scotch without glancing at the label. "Still prefer it neat?" she teased. John's nerves snapped taut. He snapped a photo with his phone, empty frame. Another. Still empty. It was as if she absorbed light the way black holes absorb stars. "Anna," he managed. She toasted the air between them. "Who else remembers you sleep on the right side because the left reminds you of foster home bunks? Or that you hum Sinatra when anxious?" He fought a vertigo born from impossible data. Her perfume, lilac-touched by smoke, made his lungs tighten. It was discontinued the year she vanished. He groped for reality, but floors seemed liquid, time-elastic. She sipped, pupils reflecting him like mirrors that judged. The storm outside escalated, rain drumming on glass walls with manic urgency. Through skewed perspective, John watched her drift through rooms, fingertips brushing countertops, piano keys, the dog's velvet ears. Jasper wagged as if greeting an old friend, further shredding John's rational defenses. Footsteps echoed where security logs later insisted no weight ever pressed the sensors. At 2 a.m. he jolted awake on the couch to see her silhouette on the balcony, hair whipping in storm wind, yet motion detectors slept. He replayed surveillance, only thunderlit emptiness. He hurled the tablet, it ricocheted, denting drywall. Soon mirrors fogged though no showers ran. Vases of lilies he hadn't ordered appeared on the dining table, the same lilies from their wedding. When he tried to record her singing softly in the hallway, the audio dissolved into static that sounded eerily like distant waves. Each glitch braided paranoia tighter around his throat. 3 sleepless days later, he found her seated at the grand piano, ivory robe cinched at the waist, the robe Anna had worn on lazy Sundays long before betrayal. Candles flickered though he banned open flames. Their glow gilded her cheekbones with ethereal warmth. Rage bent his composure. "You're not Anna. What are you?" he roared, voice ricocheting off vaulted ceilings. She closed the piano lid with a sigh heavy as snowfall. "You already know," she whispered, reaching for a necklace hidden against her skin. The chain surfaced, thin as spider silk, supporting a tarnished locket. She clicked it open, revealing a photograph of two beaming teenage girls in oversized hoodies, arms slung around each other against a backdrop of Douglas firs. On the locket's reverse, Kate Wilson and Anna Miller, friends forever. John's heartbeat stuttered. He remembered Kate, shy, fiercely loyal, present at their wedding, later swallowed by grief's shadows. "I'm not your ghost," she said, voice quivering with something older than anger. "I'm her best friend, and I'm your punishment." John staggered back as if struck. The woman before him, the face he'd once loved and destroyed, belonged to someone else wearing borrowed skin. Mind racing, he recalled fleeting headlines. Kate had retreated abroad after Anna's disappearance, unreachable except for postcards stamped with seaside vistas. Could she have transformed herself so completely? His gaze swept her features, seeking seams like a child hunting for magician's threads. None appeared. Instead, he glimpsed memories behind her eyes. Beach bonfires, college dorm pranks, tearful phone calls after Anna's surprise engagement. Those memories weren't his to share, they were Kate's. The room spun. "Impossible," he rasped, grasping at science, faith, anything. Her expression softened into sadness so vast it dwarfed rage. "Impossibility," she said, "is a word men like you invented to excuse atrocities." Kate's story unfolded in measured syllables that felt like scalpels against his illusions. She reminded him of the summer evening in Forest Park when she and Anna, just 16, were cornered by a repeat predator. Anna, tiny but fearless, had smashed a rock into the attacker's face, buying Kate precious seconds to escape. Although both girls survived, only Kate carried nightmares where branches morphed into fists. Anna called nightly, reading journal entries until Kate's trembling eased. Years later, when news of Anna's vanishing shattered television silence, those nightmares evolved into a single vow. If justice would not come, Kate would become justice. She sold her condo, her car, even her grandmother's china to fund surgeries across continents. Jawline contoured in Seoul, cheekbones sculpted in Prague, vocal cords subtly altered in Tel Aviv. Between operations, she studied videos of Anna, memorizing gestures. The half-smile when amused, the eyebrow twitch when annoyed. She learned to mimic Anna's scent by distilling lilac oil with charred cedar until chemists proclaimed a match within 1/2 part per million. She devoured articles on John's mannerisms, tracking shareholder meetings as carefully as detectives track suspects. The metamorphosis consumed a decade, molding flesh and spirit into a vessel carrying equal parts love and vengeance. John's knees sagged, but wood floors took no pity. Kate crouched, producing a slim digital recorder from her robe pocket. "Smart homes are helpful," she murmured, pressing play. His own voice, ragged and guilt-soaked, filled the air. Buried her 50 paces east of the oak. She kept saying she'd leave. Couldn't let that happen. Every dam inside him burst. Tears blurred the tiled pattern as he shook his head, denying a reality he'd recorded himself. A footfall sounded behind, steady, authoritative. Detective Tom Brown emerged from the hallway's shadow, service revolver holstered but justice blazing in his gaze. He displayed an arrest warrant and slipped noise-canceling headphones over John's ears, forcing him to listen to the confession loop while handcuffs clicked shut. In that instant, John understood the trap had always been larger than fear. It was designed to make him bury himself in words as irrevocable as the soil he once shoveled onto Anna's body. Kate rose, watching the man who'd rewritten her life reduced to a trembling silhouette. A tremor crossed her borrowed features. Not triumph, not relief, something nameless that lived where identity used to reside. The moment Brown tightened the cuffs, John Miller's carefully curated composure shattered like the tumbler he'd dropped earlier. He shouted that it was a setup, that the recorder was doctored, that the woman beside the detective was a con artist sent by jealous rivals. Brown's only answer was the Miranda litany in a voice flat as river stone: "You have the right to remain silent." Floodlights from arriving cruisers splashed harsh white across polished walls, turning the glass mansion into a crime scene diorama. Technicians photographed every overturned chair, every footprint Kate had purposefully left on the walnut planks. Outside, news drones hovered, red LEDs blinking like judgment. Reporters jostled behind barricades as John, overcoat draped awkwardly across handcuffed wrists, was guided down the stone stairs once reserved for senators and film stars. Camera flashes stuttered, stamping the image of fallen royalty onto the city's collective memory. Kate stayed inside, Jasper's head pressed against her knee, while she watched through a two-story window. John's velvet voice cracked into a plea. Asterisk Kate. Tell them. Say it isn't true. Asterisk. But 20 millimeters of triple-glazed glass turned the sound into a mime's silent scream. When the convoy finally pulled away, sirens low and sure, the hillside grew eerily calm. Kate exhaled a breath 10 years long and discovered justice made no triumphant clang. It arrived like dawn in a burn-scarred forest, quiet, roots drinking deep before anyone sees new green. 3 days later, the Multnomah County Courthouse overflowed with civic rubbernecking. CEOs, baristas, retirees, all angling for seats usually half-filled for petty theft arraignments. Prosecutors opened by looping John's confession until jurors flinched at hearing the voice they recognized from commercials and galas. Defense. Attorneys cried coercion, painting Kate as a master of deepfakes. But Brown's decade-long lattice, cell tower pings near the burial site, satellite shots of fresh soil, hardware store receipts, left no room for reasonable doubt. Kate, seated behind counsel rail, felt each exhibit like a chisel trimming a statue she'd spent years carving. She never testified, the tape was enough. Instead, she watched John's aura disintegrate, shoulders sagging, eyes no longer scanning the gallery for allies. During recess he tried to approach her, but bailiffs blocked the way. For the first time she noticed how small he looked without Power's glow, just a man in an off-rack jumpsuit whose secrets had expired. Outside, protesters waved justice for Anna placards while skeptics shouted conspiracy. Kate passed through both crowds unseen, a ghost at noon, newly aware that anonymity could weigh as much as fame. That night in a budget motel she counted ceiling tile shadows replaying inside her eyelids and wondered whether the girl Anna once saved would recognize the woman staring back from the bathroom mirror. Verdict day smelled of rain-washed lilac as if the weather itself remembered Anna. Jurors filed in, faces tight with the gravity of irreversible language. The foreperson's voice, trembling yet clear, declared John Miller guilty of second-degree murder, evidence tampering, and aggravated abuse of a corpse. Gasps rippled, some relief, some disbelief that wealth had finally slammed into a wall it couldn't buy. John gripped the defense table until his knuckles blanched. Kate felt no euphoria, only a profound unclenching, like lungs drawing full breath after years underwater. At sentencing, the judge cited predatory arrogance before imposing life with parole possible after 30 years. John tried to speak, an apology, perhaps, but emotion throttled it into a rasp. As marshals led him away, he turned toward Kate with eyes begging for something unnamed: absolution, acknowledgement, an anchor. She lowered her gaze, offering only the reflection of fluorescence on polished linoleum. Brown steered her out a side door into drizzle. Prison transport lights dwindled like embers, and Kate finally heard justice's true sound, the hush that follows a closing cell door. 2 nights later, Brown met her in a riverside tavern so ordinary it felt protected by invisibility. He sipped black coffee. She traced condensation rings on a club soda glass. No one said celebrate. Brown spoke first. Justice is heavy, he murmured. You plan on setting it down? She shrugged, eyes on dark water beyond rain-streaked windows. I thought justice would feel like surfacing. Turns out I came up in a place I don't recognize. He slid a therapist's card across scarred with sessions prepaid through victim services. She tucked it into her locket, irony noted. You built a life inside someone else's skin, he said. Now build one for yourself. Jasper, curled at her feet thanks to service vest clearance, sighed as if endorsing the advice. Brown rose, paying the bill. At the door he paused. Anna saved you once. You honor that. Now save what's left of you. His silhouette disappeared into drizzle, leaving her alone with muted jukebox twang and the strange warmth of unasked friendship. She touched her cheek, Anna's cheek, and wondered what expression belonged to the person carved out between two vanished girls. The clerk's office smelled of toner and tired carpet when she slid a stack of forms across the counter, petition for adult name change, Kate Wilson to Anna Miller. The clerk, oblivious to headlines, compared passport photo to living face and shrugged. Reason for change? He asked. She wrote, to reclaim what was taken. A judge expedited the hearing. Docket overload breeds efficiency. And 3 days later, a gavel resurrected Anna Miller by law. Outside, she signed DMV papers, bank authorizations, property transfers. John's frozen assets now hers by uncontested succession. Each new signature felt like forging a ghost's handwriting until muscle memory found perfect loops. Sunshine fractured on nearby towers, slicing the sky into mirrored shards. In them she caught glimpses of someone both familiar and strange, a chimera stitched from vengeance and longing. Relief sparkled on her tongue, chased by the bitter aftertaste of Kate fading into legal oblivion. 2 weeks later, Anna Miller stood at the threshold of a cedar-sided craftsman in Lake Oswego once touted as a future family retreat. The key slid home with unsettling ease, as if the house had waited. Dust-sheeted furniture embodied a life paused mid-sentence. Upright piano, shelves of untouched storybooks, a nursery wallpapered in pale constellations. She moved room to room, fingertips skimming surfaces, inventing memories to fill the hollows. Here Anna would have hung a baby mobile, there hosted book club nights, yet each imagined scene felt both blessing and theft. In the attic she found boxes labeled in Anna's handwriting, college notebooks, friendship bracelets, birthday cards from parents now retired in Tucson. She considered calling them, wondered if their hearts could survive this impossible resurrection, then slid the phone away. Some truths are too heavy for fragile hope. Downstairs she opened French doors onto a yard strewn with scarlet maple leaves. Jasper bounded through, tail slicing the air with uncomplicated certainty. Watching him chase squirrels, she realized she could weed gardens, repaint walls, host neighborhood barbecues, but could she inhabit these choices as more than performance? Distant church bells tolled 5, the hour John once toasted silence. She raised a mug of tea toward fading sunlight and whispered a name only she could hear, Kate. The wind carried it off, leaving her with the fragile piece of secrets kept. First frost silvered the ferns when Anna returned to the oak on the Miller estate, escorted by a sheriff's deputy fulfilling court protocol. Excavation crews had already exhumed and released Anna's remains. What lay now was a rectangle of disturbed soil bordered by flapping yellow tape. She stepped beyond it, boots sinking into loam soft from recent rains, and walked 50 measured paces east until instinct halted her. In gloved hands she carried one white rose and a faded Polaroid of 2 teenage girls brandishing a blood-speckled rock, the day Kate's second life began. Kneeling, she pressed the photo flat against damp ground, petals atop like a whispered amen. Breath fogged in cold air, mingling with mist rising from the forest floor. "We did it, Anna," she said softly. "He can't hurt anyone again." Silence answered, vast and gentle, as though the trees themselves bore witness. The deputy waited a respectful distance, radio murmuring distant chatter. She closed her eyes, letting the hush seep deep. In that stillness she felt both girls, one under earth, one above, braid together until the boundary blurred. When she rose, soil clung to her knees, reminder that even borrowed faces can't remain pristine. Turning toward the path, she left the photograph but pocketed the thornless stem, proof she had further journeys ahead. Behind her, the oak stood sentinel, its roots threading secrets deeper than any grave. When winter settled like glass over the Pacific Northwest, Anna kept weekly appointments with Dr. Elaine Kumar, a trauma specialist whose office smelled of citrus peel and pencil shavings. Therapy felt at first like speaking to a stranger through fogged glass. Words emerged muffled, identities tangled. Dr. Kumar asked gentle yet surgical questions. "When you imagine peace, whose face is wearing it, Anna's or Kate's?" Sometimes Anna answered as Kate, voice lower, shoulders hunched, describing childhood afternoons spent skipping stones across the Columbia with teenage Anna cheering each splash. Other times the voice pitched higher, posture fluid, recounting Anna's college honors. Both histories poured out in overlapping loops until memory resembled a highway whose lanes merged without warning signs. One session, Dr. Kumar slid a blank journal across the rug-soft floor, suggesting a daily practice. Divide each page, left side labeled Kate remembers, right side Anna experiences. At night Anna sat by the craftsman's fireplace, filling columns with ink that bled through paper like restless ghosts. Kate's favorite candy, Anna's preferred wine, Kate's fear of abandoned warehouses, Anna's delight in sunrise jogs. Slowly patterns surfaced, both loved early summer rain, both feared suffocating silence. She realized identity might not be a zero-sum equation but a braid stronger than discrete strands. Dr. Kumar called it integration, Anna called it possibility. Still, dreams thrashed, John's breath at her ear, soil sliding over skin, and she would wake choking, Jasper licking tears from cheeks bearing someone else's bone structure. Healing, she learned, was not linear. It spiraled like shells on the riverbank, returning to the same edges until they finally dulled. Spring tiptoed in on crocus petals the day a letter-stamped Tucson arrived, handwriting unmistakably maternal, looped and lilting. Anna had mailed a cautious postcard weeks earlier, unsigned, featuring Multnomah Falls beneath a rainbow mist. Her message, 24 words, began, "I'm alive." Now her mother's reply trembled in her hands. The envelope contained 2 pages of questions gasping between inked tears. Asterisk, who are you? How can this be? Where's our daughter? Asterisk, Anna read them aloud, voice ricocheting off sun-filled kitchen tiles, each syllable splintering into ache. She scrawled a reply that night, but tore it up. Truth felt like dropping a meteor into their fragile orbit. Instead, she booked a flight, convincing herself courage is sometimes geography. At Tucson International, desert heat embraced her like a kiln. She clutched Jasper's carrier and a bouquet of lilacs shipped overnight from a Portland florist. Her parents approached hesitantly, faces mapped with a decade of grief. When her mother whispered, "Anna?" disbelief warbled the vowel, yet hope braced the consonants. No surgery could replicate the tiny crescent scar above Anna's eyebrow, legacy of a childhood treehouse tumble. And when her father spotted it, he collapsed into a sob so primal passing travelers paused mid-stride. In their kitchen, walls still painted the seafoam hue Anna chose at age 15. They pored over documents. Court orders, DNA confirmation swabs, death certificate reversal petitions. Every bureaucratic stamp felt like resurrecting a daughter while burying another. That night, lying in the bedroom preserved like a shrine, varsity swim ribbons, annotated paperbacks, she listened to desert wind rattle saguaro spines and wondered if love could stretch to contain metamorphosis. Dawn answered softly through curtains, morning doves cooed the same regardless of whose name morning belonged to. News feeds could not resist the headline "Widow Returns, Impostor Unmasked," and algorithmic frenzy painted Anna's face across phones from Brooklyn cafes to Nairobi taxis. Comment sections split like political borders. Some hailed her as avenging angel, #Justice Queen trended for 48 hours, while others labeled her fraud, manipulator, cautionary tale about identity's malleability under scalpels and obsession. A tabloid offered 6 figures for exclusive testimony describing every incision. Streaming platforms competed for docuseries rights, promising creative control and trauma consultants. Anna declined, statement read by her attorney. Justice is complete. This chapter is closed. Yet closure proved porous. Strangers mailed handwritten notes. Survivors of abuse thanking her for courage. Surgeons pitching pro bono revisions should she desire refinement. A vandal spray-painted faker on the Lake Oswego picket fence. Neighborhood teens scrubbed it clean before sunrise, leaving daisies tucked between slats. At the grocery store checkout, an elderly man clasped her wrist, eyes shimmering, and whispered, "For my sister, who never got justice." The contact felt electric, humbling in its unpredictability. She realized that by inhabiting Anna she had become a vessel for other stories. 2. People pouring their unhealed wounds into the shape they perceived as justice fulfilled. Sometimes after such encounters she walked the river path until darkness draped city lights, repeating Dr. Kumar's mantra, "I am not a symbol, I am a person." In private, She rehearsed introducing herself. "Hello, I'm Anna Kate Miller Wilson." "Well, just Anna Miller." The name still fit like a suit borrowed from a beloved elder. Tailored, revered, slightly too big across the shoulders but warming nevertheless. Mid-June's twilight found Anna standing before the antique cheval mirror salvaged from her childhood home. Moonlight streaming through open windows, dust motes drifting like pale fireflies. She wore a simple linen slip, no makeup, hair loose. Nothing to hide behind but her own reflection. She studied the contours, straightened nose, augmented cheekbones, chin tapered to a point original Anna never had. With slow breath, she raised a Polaroid of teenage Kate. Round cheeks, laughter mid-burst, and held it beside the mirror. Two timelines collided. The girl who was saved, the woman who saved. Tears welled, not of regret, but of longing for innocence unaffected by scalpel lines. She traced her jaw, feeling faint ridges where plates anchored bone reshaping. "Who are we now?" she whispered. Jasper's soft whine punctuated the silence. She placed the Polaroid on the vanity, then lifted a charcoal pencil and drew a line down the glass, bisecting her reflection. Left side she labeled K, right side A. For 30 minutes she added words like constellation points, asterisk fearless, survivor, sister, stranger, joker, warrior, mourner, reborn. Asterisk, some belonged to Kate, some to Anna, many to both. When done, the mirror resembled a map where rivers flowed across the dividing line unimpeded. She stepped back, breath steady. Outside, crickets began their symphony, and rather than wipe the glass clean, she left it, a living document, reminder that wholeness often looks like mosaics, cracked pieces soldered with gold of experience. That night her dreams shifted. No graves, no choking earth, only two girls laughing by a riverbank, skipping stones that arced beneath the sun refusing to set. Integration birthed purpose. In July, Anna approached Rose Haven, Portland's day shelter for women fleeing violence, offering storytelling workshops framed around reclaiming narrative. The director, aware of her saga, hesitated. Celebrity could siphon focus from clients, but Anna insisted on anonymity, signing in under the initials K. She led Tuesday circles where participants molded trauma into poetry, sculpting clay hearts that cracked then refused with gold leaf, a nod to kintsugi. During one session a teen, fresh bruises shadowing her jaw, asked, "Does revenge fix the hurt?" A hush fell. Anna chose honesty. Justice helps, but healing comes from creating something stronger out of the broken. She showed them her mirror photo, gasps mixed with nods. Over weeks, laughter sprouted like dandelions through sidewalk seams. One woman who hadn't spoken in months read aloud a letter forgiving herself, another painted a mural of phoenix feathers across the shelter's gray brick wall. Local papers covered the mural unveiling, but Anna slipped away before photographers realized who Kay was. Driving home across Hawthorne Bridge, Willamette water glimmering beneath, she felt a quiet fullness, an echo of the night Anna first saved Kate, rewriting terror into survival. The echo vibrated not as pain but as harmony, accompanying new melodies of lives mending under communal care. She realized vengeance is singular, but healing prefers crowds. Autumn bled copper into maples when a cream-embossed envelope arrived from Oregon State Penitentiary's corrections counselor. John Miller had requested a mediated dialogue under restorative justice provisions. Dr. Kumar advised caution. Brown left the choice to her. After sleepless deliberation she consented, believing closure is less door than corridor. The visitation room smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. John entered shackled, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on shoulders sharpened by institutional diet. Gray-streaked temples once barbered weekly. Yet his eyes remained unnervingly lucid. Sitting across a bolted table, Anna felt pulse drum but kept posture relaxed. John spoke first, voice throttled. "I need to know, was any of it real?" Meaning her love, perhaps? She considered, then answered, Anna's love was real. "Your betrayal made it mortal." He flinched as though struck. He apologized, words rehearsed yet trembling. She listened without granting absolution. Some debts transcend language. When he begged, "Who are you now?" she replied, "Someone living." A tear slid down his cheek, carving a path through contrition or self-pity, she couldn't tell. The mediator ended the session at 60 minutes. Walking out, prison gates clanged behind like jaws locking. She inhaled crisp air spiced with fallen leaves and realized John's cage did not enlarge her freedom. She had built her own by choosing to step out of his shadow. Later she burned his letter over a backyard fire pit, embers spiraling into night like shattered constellations. By late November the city's drizzle seeped into her bones and she felt gravitated toward the Pacific where horizons blur distinctions. She loaded Jasper and a week's essentials into an aging VW camper acquired under Kate's name years prior and drove west across Highway 26, first standing sentinel. At Cannon Beach, monoliths jutted from gray surf, eternal and indifferent. She parked, stepped barefoot onto chilled sand, letting icy foam bite ankles. With her came a tin box, inside, the journal she kept during transformation, recorder that captured John's confession, and the locket bearing two entwined names. Building a small driftwood fire, she fed the journal page by page. Surgery notes curling into ash, revenge strategies popping like seeds in heat. The recorder followed, sparks painting ephemeral constellations. She kept the locket, burying it beneath wet sand near tide line. The ocean would decide its fate. Jasper barked at receding waves, then dashed after gulls. She breathed salt air, tasting liberation brined with melancholy. On the horizon, clouds parted just enough for sunset to spill molten copper across water, the kind of light that doesn't ask pedigree before blessing skin. She whispered goodbye to Kate, to Anna, to versions anchored by pain, and listened as wind carried each syllable into roaring surf where definition dissolves into undertow. Dawn greeted the camper with gull cries and pewter light. Anna brewed camp coffee, its bitterness grounding. She opened a fresh journal, embossed blank cover, a gift from Rose Haven participants, and on the first page wrote simply, *Day 1. *, no dual columns. No bifurcated self. Just an unwritten expanse inviting honest ink. She packed, leaving footprints mingled with canine prints forming a path only morning tide would erase, and steered south along Highway 101, coastal evergreens bowing in silent procession. Destination undefined. Maybe Mendocino's cliffs, maybe Monterey's tide pools, maybe a town so small gossip still travels on handwritten notes. As miles unwound, she hummed Tracy Chapman, the melody Anna once favored, vocals blending with engine rumble into a lullaby for reborn selves. In the rearview mirror, Oregon's headlands shrank, yet their lessons rode shotgun. Courage wears many masks, justice exacts tax. Identity is narrative we author daily. A green road sign flashed next 45 miles scenic route, and she laughed, accepting the promise and the warning. She roll. Down the window, ocean wind whipped hair across reconstructed cheekbones and the sensation felt entirely, miraculously, her own. Ahead, sunlight-pierced cloud cover laying a gold road atop the water. She followed, heart steady, no longer a ghost chasing memory but a storyteller driving into the blank page of horizon, ready at last to live a tale still being written. If you watched this far, please kindly subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment your thoughts below. Your support would really help us grow. Thank you and see you in the next one if you subscribed.